Hello, everybody.
That was quite the intro right there. That was
Huh?
impressive. That was impressive, you know.
Thank you. I try. Let's see here. If you guys are watching, we are live. It is May the 4th, so May the 4th be with you.
If they're not watching, we're actually still live. It's not like a Tree Force thing. We
Right,
are live,
exactly. Yeah.
whether they're watching or not.
Right. It's not a bear
Just letting
pooping in the
you know.
woods when no one's around.
Yeah, that happens too. You can step in it and you'll find out.
Yeah, oh, you'll know. You might lose a
You'll
shoe.
be aware.
Oh, la la. Okay. Turn on monetization. Ta-da. And hit the button. Hope everybody is doing well. We are getting set up. Let me know if the music is too loud or not loud enough. Curtis says it's okay. I tested it and it seems okay. I just want to see.
Alrighty.
So you were gone last week.
Yes, I was. Yes, I was, and I'm okay with that.
So what were you doing? Were you vacationing? Let's see, live on YouTube and Twitter. What was your name again? I just see your channel name there. I want to say Phil, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
And I probably am wrong. Let's see. I'm waiting. He's not answering. He's not real. He doesn't exist. So what were you doing?
I was trying to just take a little breather before the summer hits and things get crazy. Crazy.
Oh, Justin. Duh. Okay. Tony's Coffee House. Nice title. Hey, thank you. And welcome, Tony's Coffee House. How's the coffee? Let's see here. We're just putting the final touches on our setup. So Curtis was gone last week. If y'all did join me, then you know that I was just, talking and visiting and saying hi to everybody and trying to work on a few things. I had vMix Social all set and ready and all that, and then I tried to use it today, and it's like, hey, vMix isn't running. While I'm looking at vMix, it's like, hey, it's not running. Right. Okay, so that's working. But I have bypassed several updates because once you get something working, you don't want to just update. So I've bypassed some updates, and it's probably time to do an update.
Yes, bypassing updates can be detrimental. Today's show is on bypassing updates.
Yes.
What's the appropriate amount of time to bypass an update?
That's right.
Don't update immediately, because then ProPresenter will say, yeah, we don't support that.
So when you were vacationing last week, I know one of the things that you like to do when you go on vacation is actually relax, as opposed to, like hit the amusement parks and, do all that super crazy stuff. You like to actually rest on your vacation, which you are to be applauded for.
Yeah, I don't have enough money to go and do like fancy stuff on vacations. Like, I can't go on cruises and all that kind of crazy stuff. So I just go places where I can be. Plus, life's busy enough without adding a whole bunch of busyness to myself.
So I know that you are a Lego fan, like I am, as evidenced by my background and stuff. So what projects did you work on while you were gone?
Well, that was the Lambda class shuttle. That was
Nice.
what I did last time from the Return of the Jedi scene where Luke takes Darth Vader, that kind of thing. So, yeah. So
Yeah,
I've got the Lambda class shuttle now. It's at the house. I don't have any Legos in the background right now, but there's a Lego set right there. I can see it.
Which one is it?
It's the probe droid.
Oh, yes. I've got that one in the box sitting on my shelf waiting in line to be put together.
Well, the problem with the probe droid is every time you move it, everything falls off. and
Yeah.
so I don't move that one. That one, like, you almost have to build it in place, because like you'll build it and then it'll fall apart and you'll have to build parts of it back. So, and
You
so
know-
yeah, that's one of the only ones that I've run into that with.
The the giant UCS, which UCS stands for Ultimate Creator Series, UCS AT-AT, the big, huge, $700 AT-AT, that is like scaled to the minifigure, right? It's that big. That one, I saw a review on it, and it is so fragile, and they really push the limits on building technique and rules. There's legal builds and illegal builds where you misuse a part the way it wasn't designed to be used and stuff. They kind of push the limit on that sort of stuff. And the guy who was doing the review, he had it on a table and he was just showing things, and he said, now the biggest complaint I have about this is its fragility. I'm just gonna take a mic, and he had a mic, and he put a mic up, says, just listen, and it's just sitting there by itself, and he's just moving the mic around it, and you can hear it creaking and like settling and stuff. And he said it's good for posing at like this and like this. Anything else, you're taking your build into your own hands. And I've seen so many pictures of, hey, I'm so proud of this, it's so wonderful, and then the next day it's a pile on the floor.
Yeah, well, if you think about it, though, I mean, all you had to do is just wrap that tow cable around the legs.
Right.
Yeah. So probably kind of fragile. So.
Well, you wrap the tow
Yeah.
cable around. I mean, they're shooting at it. That's one. It's actually playing right back here. If you guys can't see it, I'm watching it right now. They're shooting at it, and nothing is happening. But as soon as it falls down, then all of a sudden, you can blow it up, which is amazing. As opposed to just like
They should
dive.
be shooting projectiles at it instead of
Yes.
lasers.
Yes, definitely. Light is not necessary. Oh, speaking of lasers,
Pellet guns. Star Wars needed pellet guns.
They did.
That's what they needed.
They did. And I need to go turn on my lightsaber real quick. I'll show y'all. 1 second. I have to take my ears
I'll
off.
keep mine unignited over here. So mine's right here. The unignited lightsaber. So I'm trying to keep things safe.
My lightsaber over there, for those of y'all who don't know, is an actual laser. It is it's a Wicked laser from Wicked Lasers. Did a promotional video for them a few years ago, and so they sent me a pile of lasers. So it's a 1 watt laser. I mean, it's really cool, and they have this adapter that you can screw onto it that houses the energy, the photonic energy inside, and looks like a lightsaber. So I have that on my.
Mine's just a replica of Luke Skywalker's Return of the Jedi lightsabers. So.
Oh, very good.
It doesn't
All right.
shoot real lasers.
No, that's good. Well, and I saw something they have developed, and I don't know if they're selling it yet, but like a replica lightsaber that when you hit the button, it actually extends out. The thing extends out and locks into place, so you can play with it and stuff, and then it'll retract, as opposed to having to flip it out or what have you. That's really cool. By the way, you guys will find that Curtis and I are not one-dimensional. We are 3D. I actually come with smell-o-vision. So today is one of those not. You're SpongeBobbing.
The 3D.
Yes,
I have
you are.
depth.
Yes, you do have depth.
A lot of depth.
So we're
Too much depth.
Today's episode is a fun one. We are going to be talking about church media and all that sort of stuff. We'll be doing it with a definite Star Wars spin to it. So some of it's probably going to be really corny, but we don't care. We're going to have fun, and we hope you guys have fun as well.
Let's get this shoe on the road.
Here we go. All right.
Boom.
Booyah, booyah, and booyah. All right. Let me get my. Okay.
Are we starting with the helmets on?
Yeah, let's start with the helmets on.
I'm going to be very muffled.
That's okay. Can you hear me? I can hear you.
I can hear you.
That's awesome. Here we go. Mine's making my nose itch. Okay, here we go. Let me see. There we go. May the 4th be with you. If you're joining us for the first time, I am David Fett, and with me is, I don't know, Curtilorian? whatever you are.
This is the way.
This is the way. Welcome to the Church Media Guys show. I'm Dave, and that is Curtis. And today is May the 4th, and we're hamming it up. So may the 4th be with you. Okay, my nose is itching in this. I can't have this on.
Now I'm gonna have to go bathe in the waters of whatever.
Right. Exactly. Where's the armorer? She needs to send me the directions. Welcome to the show, guys. We are going to be having fun today. We're going to be talking church media. We're going to be doing it with a Star Wars slant to it because Curtis and I are gigantic Star Wars fans. We've raised our
nerds.
Yes, nerds, geeks. Yes, we have raised our children as such as well. I've got 2 girls who absolutely adore Star Wars, and he's got 2 boys that absolutely adore Star Wars. And when the 6 of us get together, it can be a fantastic bit of nerddom. So, may the 4th be with you, Mr. Curtis.
May the 4th be with you as well. This is the way.
This is the way. All right. So Curtis and I were talking. I want to jump over to the chat just really quick. We're going to involve them as we go. So we'll be jumping back and forth between a 2-shot and a 3-shot. Let me see here. Your mic is a little hot. I'm sorry. Let me turn it down. Thank you for telling me. Awesome.
Come on, Boba Fett.
I'm sorry. I'm actually. I need to change up my monitoring here because I'm not actually monitoring from my mixer. I'm still not even sure I like this mixer, but I do not want to drop, $600 on a Rodecaster. At least I do want to drop it. I don't want to drop it just yet, but I do want to get a Rodecaster. If anybody is a Star Wars fan, then be sure to say Star Wars or This is the Way or something like that in chat and let us know. We're going to be jumping back and forth to the chat as we go through this today. So, Curtis, this entire show was your idea. So I'm going to let you take the lead. You came up with a little bit of brilliance, so take it away, Pastor James.
So life always points us back in the direction of what God's doing, and creativity is creativity. So we say we're church media creators. And the truth is, we create things. Maybe it's through our editing, maybe it's through the angles of shots we're getting, maybe it's through our ears as we're mixing, different things like that. And so as we navigate all of this, creativity ties to creativity. And so I decided it's May the 4th. It's a special day of the year for those of us who are total nerds and geeks, which a lot of you are because you're a church media creator, and let's face it, we're all a bunch of nerds and geeks, right? I mean, we're like, oh, what's the technology, And so to me, there's a great tie-in today, and that is for us to examine the Star Wars universe and how it applies to media creation in the church, which is probably just a little bit of a stretch, but I'm okay with that. And if you don't like it, you're probably on the wrong channel because it's Star Wars Day. So we're talking Star Wars, and we're going to talk about only the original trilogy today. I'm not discounting the value of the prequels. Mm-hmm. I am discounting the value of the sequels. Oh, wait, no. Did I say I am discounting those, even though I found them entertaining. We're not going to dive into an episode-by-episode Mandalorian or Star Wars Rebels conversation. But we're going to stick with the original trilogies, A New Hope, The Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. So, we're going to talk about how in the world could those things relate to media in the church?
Okay, so
How could that happen?
I have no idea. I mean, I know that at our church, you and me and our worship pastor and our pastor have been known to co-opt the big projectors and the big screens and take a look at cinema on the giant screens that we have from time to time. We did a Lord of the Rings thing, but we haven't done the like Empire would look really good in there, I think, especially with our sound system. That would be really cool. Anyway, I digress. So should I start off with like a long time ago in a church building far, far away?
Yeah, I mean, do we have a scroll? Where's the scroll?
I don't know. I can rewind on the thing back here. We do need a scroll. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey,
So,
speaking of
not a
church,
scroll.
it's time for you to open the scroll.
Yeah, it's not a scroll. We're not talking about Secret Invasion with Marvel. We're talking about the other Disney franchise, the Star Wars scroll. Just for you guys to know. We can do another episode on Marvel. Do you guys want one on Marvel? We can definitely do an episode on Marvel if you would like. But anyway.
Somewhere around here I have an Iron Man shirt. So
Yeah.
I can wear that.
Definitely. So Dave, when we talk about it, I think that we just start, we start where it all started. We start on a desert planet, out in the middle of nowhere, which may be what your church feels like at times. It's like you have no resources. You're like, oh man, I've got to go back to Tashi Station per power inverters. So, it's like, oh man, I'm running out of batteries. I need AA's, right? And so here we go, now we're going to, and then they tell us we can't go get the batteries because we've got to work on not droids, because you probably don't have any in your church, but instead, you're going to find yourself working on the old equipment that's run down that you bought used from some dude out of the back of his truck. He was really short and had glowing green eye or yellow eyes, which was strange to you. But anyway, so like we're dealing with all this equipment and all these things that are from all these different places, and we're trying to figure out how to sap every bit we can out of what we have. And so then we enter this time, the new hope. We call that the new budget year, right? Okay, so it's January and the budget has turned over and you have all of this money, your entire $300 media budget. I don't know what you have, it's like, some of us are like, yeah, $300, that's what I get, it's enough to buy like batteries. But, so you've got your whole budget, you've got everything to work with. And so the question is, how do we deal with this new hope that we have, this new year where we asked for more? We got more this time because people understand the value of creating media in the church and what we can do. And now here we are. And the first thing I want to tell you to do is don't be that guy. Okay.
What guy is that?
First of all, don't be two of that guy. The first guy is the one who's like, I gotta go to Tashi Station and get power converters. Because nobody likes that guy, right?
Right.
We all know that guy. We've talked about that guy at length. He's the guy who's just whining because he doesn't have what he needs. No, right. We have plans, we present those, we get budgets built around those things. But once the new year starts and we have this budget, don't go out and spend it all in January, okay? Hang on a second. Take some time, prioritize some stuff out, and say, okay, if I spend it all now, first of all, I'm not going to have battery money, right? I'm not going to have that in a few months because I'm going to have spent it all. Second of all, the other ministries in the church that have stuff they need to buy, they're going to be told no. Why? Well, because our income has got to match our outgo, and our media ministry just spent all of our income. So no, children's ministry, you can't buy this. Youth ministry, you can't buy that. You need to wait. And so what you're being is a bad team member. All right? Don't be like, oh, I've got it, so I can spend it now. Don't be that guy, okay? Nobody likes that guy. Be the one that's a team member who says, okay, I understand I have needs. I have these needs that are things that are literally like today. I have to have this today. I've been pushing it off for months to get into the new budget. Okay, you got to buy what you got to buy. Mm-hmm. But don't just go buy everything on your list day one. Make that budget last throughout the whole year. Be a good team member. Be the kind of person that your finance team goes, wow, look at how they're spreading out their expenditures throughout the year instead of it just being like, wham, you just got nailed by everything. And now I'm going to be back in a few months saying, oh, I don't have enough. I need to buy batteries. You know what I mean? And so really think about that and think about, what do I need and what can I wait just a little bit of time, and acknowledge also Think about this. If, let's say, you're coming up on June, well, if your church has a children's ministry and a youth ministry, then they're about to spend a whole bunch of money on VBS, on camps, mission trips, things like that for the summer. So summers are a good time to kind of say, you know what, I think maybe I won't spend a lot in the summer. Maybe I hang on and I'll spend in, March and May and then September, October, to try to balance out what's going on with our budget so people don't freak out and think, oh, we're running out of money because we're spending so much on the front end. So anyway, all of that to say, know your budget. I know it's a new hope that you have, but don't just go spend it all at the beginning. Be a good teammate. That's what I would recommend for the first thing about having a new hope. Dave, you got any thoughts?
No, I think that makes sense. I'd never really thought about the way you put it. How I mean, obviously, if there's a big ticket item and there's something that has, this is something that you have to do. Let's say it's a soundboard or something, and we've approved it. There you go. We've got even. It's even not a part of like the regular media budget or worship ministry budget, right? It's been in addition to the budget, but it's there and we've set it aside and the money's available. Yeah, you want to go ahead and get it so that you can start putting it to use. You don't want to wait, until something happens and now you have to buy it and now you have to put some duct tape on the old one while you're waiting for it to ship and to get here and all that sort of stuff. And you don't want to overload the church's cash flow as well. So I really like that idea that you're thinking about what's going to be happening, and we don't want to overload the cash flow. We want to make sure that everything's able to flow smoothly, but we're still able to accomplish the things that we want to accomplish. So lower priority things can get pushed off a little bit, or can be spread out over 12 months instead of over 2 months. I think that's really cool. So don't just run to Tashi Station.
Right. And I think that, when you're talking about this kind of thing, it's when it's really important to know your equipment and be able to prioritize. So like maybe you've got a piece of equipment that has been failing for a long time. Maybe your soundboard has rebooted during your service 3 times. This happened to us with our soundboard.
Not
and
fun.
It was just like, oh, we got to hold on to it. We got to hold on to it. We got to get to the new year. And so we get to the new year and we're able to purchase this pretty large ticket item, but knowing, hey, this is what's most pressing. Hey, these wireless mics are getting old. Maybe a battery container cover doesn't like to stay on this when it's gaff taped on because they dropped it and cracked it, and all that kind of stuff. You know what? I mean, while that's not how we want things to be, that mic works. And so we can let that wait. And you can say, well, it gets gummy and sticky. Okay, well, then just clean it with alcohol and put new tape on it. It still works. And so make sure you prioritize, hey, this is the critical stuff, and then prioritize, hey, these are the things we want to do. If you've got the budget for it, sometimes we don't ever get to do what we want to do, but if you've got the budget for it, you can look at it and say, okay, I want to replace this camera, or I want to add another camera, or this cabling's getting older and I would like to just go ahead and proactively replace it. That's great. That's not a top priority. That's something you push down, and maybe you say that's something we do in the fall when we've kind of gotten through a lot of expenses. Because believe it or not, September, October, November, those are actually good times to spend. It'll be probably one of your church's highest income times, by the way. So your biggest giving will actually be in December, but normally those fall months do pretty well. So your income will be up a little bit. Your big ministry expenditures from the summer will be done. And so you'll be able to kind of say, hey, I can gear up as we get ready for the special thing we're going to do at Christmas time or whatever. But you still have plenty of time. If you wait till September or October to get that, you have plenty of time to integrate that equipment for a special event in December or something like that. So as you have this new hope in your life, just really prioritize. Have a list and prioritize it. And then be faithful to your list. Don't be like, but I really want this, so I'm just going to jump it up over other things, because then you pay the cost on that because something breaks live in your service, and then people complain, and you're like, oh, now I have to spend the money, and now you're that guy again. So so be careful when you get that new hope.
That's cool. Really, really good thoughts there. Really, really good stuff. thoughts. Yeah, don't be the whiner, or don't put yourself into a position to be whining at Uncle Owen or anything. Hey, Curtis, the other day I was going through some of our stats on our YouTube channel, and one of the things that I noticed was that on average, about 70% of the people that are watching this have not actually subscribed to the channel. That's something that you can see when you're looking at how people are coming in and watching. So it's really cool that people are finding our content and finding our show and all that without being subscribed. But what's even cooler is when you guys do subscribe. So if you would, please do us the honor of hitting the subscribe button and hitting the notification bell. And if you really like this, then turn on all notifications so you can be notified anytime we do something on here, and we can stay in contact with you, and you can stay up to date on what's going on. We'd really appreciate it. So, Curtis, we have the chapter 2 of the 3-act play. I remember watching George Lucas in an interview. I still have like all these documentaries and interviews and stuff from the 80s and late 70s and into the 80s, these behind the scenes, the making of, and all this sort of stuff, where before anything got enhanced and special editioned and cleaned up and added or taken away from and all this kind of stuff, I'm able to see like the original thoughts that were happening in his head as he was building this whole universe that he did. And one of the things that he said was he thought of Star Wars as a big space opera, and that opera had 3 acts. And so A New Hope actually there was like 9 acts in it when he originally had done it, and this was like the middle 3 acts, right? So part 2 of the 3-part saga. And he said that when you get to the 2nd act in any kind of a story, that is when you have the opportunity to to get to know the characters that were introduced in the previous act, to get you've gotten past some of the conflict, but now you're going a little bit deeper with the characters, and then you start seeing that there's real and serious peril, that is happening, and that's when a lot of the main problems that are going to be carried throughout the rest of the story start showing up. And in the case of The Empire Strikes Back, you get left on a huge cliffhanger of what's going to happen. There is no hope. We had a new hope in the previous one, and now all hope is lost and all that. So how exactly does that relate to church media and stuff? I mean, I've had moments of hopelessness, sometimes in the middle of a stream when I've got to go and reboot cameras and stuff. But how does that happen in general?
Well, I mean, there's a couple of things. One, connecting to what we were just talking about with A New Hope. We have this new hope, and we're like, oh, we're going to be able to do this in September, and then maybe giving isn't good. And the air conditioners, we're in Texas, so air conditioners go out like every 3 weeks around here. And you have to spend all this money on air conditioners, or a roof caves in your building, or something happens, and all of a sudden you don't have access to that budget anymore. They're telling you, look, we need everybody to kind of curb spending. So one of the things we hit is, your funds get frozen in carbonite, basically. Okay, they're not available to you anymore, and everybody stands around and mourns as we watch it happen, and we realize we may not get access to that, and so we have to work with what we have. And so we're gonna run into issues. It may be that your computer freezes in carbonite. Your streaming computer just freezes up on you, which does happen, by the way.
That happens.
In fact, I'm pretty sure someone just mentioned in the chat how that happened to him. Mm-hmm. So as we walk through these kinds of things, we're going to run into problems. And one of the problems you're going to run into is that new computer that you just bought, that you put in the budget, and they were like, wow, that's expensive, and you're like, yeah, but we really need it. When it freezes in carbonite, that's a problem, because people are like, why'd we spend all this money if it's not gonna work, and you can look at them and say, well, because God didn't design the computer, like it's right. Not been, in his omniscience and vast wisdom and omnipresence, he's not actually in the transistors and chips in my computer.
Well, it's actually Clone Wars surplus is what I found. So
yes.
Yeah. So well, I mean, you can only do what you can do.
Guys, I mean, they've changed the names now, and we are moving to the prequels. But you do realize that your Windows unit used to be called a clone.
Yeah,
Okay,
it
it was a
was.
IBM clone,
Yep.
and it still really is. It's just IBM doesn't make much anymore. Anyway, that's a whole other story. But so you're already working with clones, okay? But when it comes down to it, the whole concept of I've got a plan, prioritize things, and I'm ready to move forward. Those are all great things, but you're going to hit problems. I mean, even from a biblical standpoint, and one of these days, maybe we'll make a video about this, but you can actually look at how ministry started in the Bible, and you'll find a consistent pattern over and over. You'll find that there's this call that takes place, and that God shows up, and then right after that, there's going to be a problem, and the problem is then going to lead to the building of a team, and then the team's going to work together. They're going to run into probably a second problem, and then God shows up again, and the ministry begins to function. You can find it in Paul's ministry. You can find it in the beginning of the church. You can find it in Jesus' ministry. It's throughout the whole Bible. So anyway, what you know is you're going to run into problems. The Bible says, in this world, you will have trouble. Let me share with this. In church media, you will have trouble. Okay, you can translate that. It actually works.
Yes.
And so you're
Was
going
that from
to
the
run
Message?
into things. You're going to have maybe the Message remixed. All
Okay,
right.
yeah.
So, but when you are running into these issues and you're walking along the road of doing this, and you've got your budget, you've got your priority list, and then something breaks that you didn't plan on breaking, that item that's maybe only a couple of years old, that maybe you just bought it last year, that was running great, and all of a sudden this piece of equipment goes out, and now you're 80, 100, 500, $1,000 gone, that you can't put in your priority list anymore. That's that Luke, I'm your father moment. Spoiler alert, by the way. Luke, I'm your father moment, where you're like, what just happened? No, it's not true. That's what we say, right? When we find out that
Right.
the thing that we thought we could count on, we're like, it's not true. So it's very, very, very Empire Strikes Back, right? No. I mean, I've done it.
Yeah.
Like, no, it can't be that piece. It's so expensive. And so anyway, it's in literally, when that happens, when it breaks, you may not be able to replace it right away. As a matter of fact, given the supply chain issues we face right now, you probably can't replace it right away. We had a speaker go out that we had to wait several weeks to be able to even replace it, and it was going to take months to repair. And so, as you're looking at that, it's literally like doing your ministry one-handed. Okay, so like literally, you lost your hand just now, all right? And now you're trying to hang on to Cloud City. I know the analogy's got to break down at some point, right? And then at some point you just feel like you're falling aimlessly, and that's when it's important to make sure you have a team, okay? Because if you're doing this alone and that happens, then you're just going to fall out of Cloud City and I guess be crushed on the ground. But because you have a team, they can come by and help you out and build you up, and get you a new hand. Sorry, probably not get you a new hand, but help
they
get
can.
you that piece of equipment that you need.
Right.
I mean, it is. We're talking in analogies here, right?
Yes.
So, but
your
these
team
things,
can
we
rescue you
face these
from the antenna array as you're dangling there. They'll come in with a whole new set of ideas or help you see things that you haven't been able to see from a certain point of view. That's how we did it with our lighting system, because we were having all kinds of stuff. Our lighting system is a mixture of brand new top of the line stuff and lights that are 45 years old, all mixed together, and we want them all to talk.
Older than that, probably.
Yes, we want them all to
this
talk
stuff
to
is
each other.
from like the 70s.
Right, exactly.
It's crazy.
Exactly. But when we brought in a Jedi to take a look at it, and he realized, how to integrate together and all that, all of a sudden we don't have near the problems that we had before and stuff, because he joined our team and saw things from a different point of view, which really, really helps.
Yeah, and it really is the key. We joke about all this kind of stuff, but it's true. You can look at stories, great stories, they all follow the same arcs, and it's the same arcs that we live our lives through. Our lives are a story, and we're walking through the story, and it's going to have, there's protagonists, there's antagonists, there's plot twists, There's breaks between the sequels where things seem to settle down. There's moments of high activity, low activity, there's huge changes. There's moments of helplessness, hopelessness at times. All those things happen in our lives. It's why we like the movies. We love a story. We were made to love a story. If you read the Bible is telling a story. It really is. It's helping us understand who God is and what He's done from a narrative aspect. It's not a technical journal that just lays out math problems of, how God created physics to work a certain way. He doesn't worry about that. He says you can figure that out as you're, learning to subdue the earth. But when it comes down to it, we've got this thing going on in our lives where we're all driven by story. And so that's why it's fun to look at stories that have shaped our people, shaped our generations, and say, hey, these things are true. And when we put them on a big screen, sometimes it actually does help us unpack what's gone on in our lives and what we face, and it helps us see, the path through it. So that sounds maybe too philosophically valuable to a Star Wars universe, but it doesn't matter if you're talking about Star Wars or the Bourne Identity or Tolkien stuff, or you're talking about C.S. Lewis's Narnia stories,
or even John Wick
stories. Yeah, well, then you lose more than a hand.
That's
so,
right.
we don't want that to happen.
Yes. No, it's funny. John Wick, I'm gonna sidestep here for just a second. It just occurred to me that what's the scripture where it talks about putting on the full armor of God?
Yeah, it's in Romans.
Yeah. So, putting on the breastplate of righteousness, and the feet, and girding your loins, and doing all this sort of stuff. Every John Wick movie, man, he goes in there and gets the new suit and gets the new shirt and all that, which is all armor, and he's preparing for a battle and stuff. So there's even biblical truths in John Wick. So.
Yeah, there are some shows that probably still share these narrative truths that we would not recommend you watch as well.
That's right.
So just realize there's some things that we would call off limits.
That's right.
So,
before we go to our our heroes returning and saving the day, as it were, Curtis, I wanted to let everybody know about somebody that you should have on your team. Would this be your Obi-Wan? Would it be your Han Solo? I'm not sure, but you need to have Restream as a part of your team, as a part of your fellowship, a part of your band of brothers or sisters that are helping you get everything going and working really smoothly. If you go to getrestream.com and sign up, you can get a $10 coupon or credit, whatever. I think it said, I would say $10 credit when you sign up. So $10 credit when you sign up. Restream is the streaming service that we use. Restream, I look at it as it's like an intermediary between me and you, Curtis, and the platforms that we stream to. So we do this at our church. We do it here as well. What Restream does is gives you 1 point to stream to, and then allows you to set up your destinations to syndicate to on there. So we have Facebook and YouTube at the church. Currently here, you and I are streaming solely on YouTube, but we are still going through Restream to do it. And you can add more as you go. So what's cool is, let's say, Curtis, you and I are both gamers. You are much more a gamer than I am, but we both like to play games. There are people out there that are pastors, that are ministers, that love to game and have actually started building gaming ministries where while they're gaming, they are talking with people in the chat, getting to know people through that shared experience, that shared joy that they have in video gaming and stuff, and developing these relationships with folks and sharing Christ and growing on there. So let's say that starts happening. Well, now, if you're a pastor, let's say, or a family pastor in Curtis's case, and that starts happening, it may be worth it to start streaming to Twitch. Well, then you just go into Restream, connect your Twitch account, and then when you hit stream, it will connect. And now you're streaming on 3 platforms and reaching 3 different audiences. So go to getrestream.com, get a $10 credit when you sign up. It is one of our tools that we love, that we use, that we've been using for 4, 5, 6 years. I don't know. I've been using Restream for a long time. Can't recommend it enough. So getrestream.com. Now, our heroes are left in peril. There is no hope. Everything is falling apart. We've lost hands. We've lost feet. We're just rolling around, floundering.
We're frozen in carbonite.
We're frozen in carbonite. Curtis is frozen in carbonite. How do we get him out? I'm heading to Jabba's palace. Help me, Obi-Wan. You're my only hope.
So, here's the thing. What we see from the great movie Return of the Jedi, which I understand most of you would argue is not the best Star Wars movie. Actually, most people would argue that of the original trilogy, it's the worst Star Wars movie. Most people say Empire Strikes Back is the best movie. But what I will tell you is, for me, the Return of the Jedi is the greatest Star Wars movie because of my age when it came out and everything that was going on. It's such a memory for me to go and see that movie. So it's my favorite. I understand cinematically it could be lacking in some ways. I'm perfectly fine with that.
Everybody's allowed to be wrong. It's okay.
Amazing. It's amazing. Okay. So Return of the Jedi, this is what year did that come out? It was like 1983. Was that 83? I thought, yeah. So I was like, whatever, 6, 7 years old.
Yeah.
9, 9 years old. So that was when Empire Strikes Back, I was 6 or 7. So 8, 9 years old. So here I am, and I'm in this prime time. I've been waiting. I want to see what happens next. And then the movie starts, and it's not what I expected, right? There's this desert scene, and C-3PO and R2-D2, and then they're in like Jabba the Hutt, who we had never seen before until they edited him into Empire Strikes Back, which was a terrible idea. But we won't go into actually A New Hope, which was a terrible idea. But anyway, that's okay. And so, because Han shot first. Anyway, but as there's this whole thing going on, and there's this elaborate plan that's rolling out that they're going to save Han Solo from carbonite, right? The computer is frozen, the streaming service is locked up, and here we are, our budgets are frozen in carbonite, and so it's time to really make a plan from that point. You have your priority list, you understand what you're trying to do, but it's time to sit down and say, okay, this is what we have. I don't know if you noticed, but the Rebel Alliance had limited resources, and Luke Skywalker and his genius Jedi Knightedness had a plan, and he put it together with the resources they had on hand. And so he's using the old beat up droids, and he's using the ex-swindler and the princess and all these kinds of things to make his elaborate plan work. And we have to be willing to do that in the church. You're probably never going to be able to say, well, here are the things I need. Oh, and they say, well, just buy them all. Just go ahead. Just buy them all. Don't even check the budget. No, that doesn't happen. They're going to go, okay, that's a whole lot of money. What can we do without? Or you're going to get halfway through the upgrade and maybe things get frozen and we say, okay, now what? So understanding what we have on hand is really, really important. Understanding how old is this? What is it capable of? What can it do? What it can't do? And then being willing to say, how can I refit something for multiple uses? We talk about that a lot on this show. Dave, you talk about it with cameras, kind of moving cameras from more prominent positions to less prominent as we upgrade cameras and things like that.
Right.
That's an example of how we can take what we have and then develop what sometimes needs to be a pretty elaborate plan, with several nuances. You just watch the opening scene. There's a million places it could have gone wrong, but in actuality, there was just different plans for it to go differently. So that's what we need to do. We need to have a lot of plans. One plan says, hey, we need to hang on for these 3 months, and then we believe the budget's going to kind of recover and we'll be able to buy. Then, one plan will say, what if it doesn't happen? What if that money isn't coming available, and it stays frozen in carbonite? You know what I mean? And so we've got to be able to walk through all of that and have a plan for a plan under a plan, and really be able to have levels of it and for the whole team to understand the plan and be on board with the plan and speak into the plan, because it's going to cost everybody something when
Right.
we have to do that.
Exactly. Thank you, Justin Nava, for the super chat talking about Empire and when everything's going wrong. Justin said Han Solo's response to Leia is the same as when someone tells us that the sound is having issues. I know. I think he's right. Christopher said, "Yeah, but Han loved Leia and Leia loved Han. No one loves us when the sound goes goes kaput." So, yeah, no, we get it. We get it. I know. You know
I knew Justin could come along this journey with us. I knew
yes,
it.
exactly. You know, when you talk about how you have to have a different plan or something, when you look at in Empire, you know, there was a plan. There was or it's not Empire, in Return of the Jedi. There was a plan to recover Han from Jabba the Hutt that had a lot of moving parts and had a lot of time that had to go. You sort of start moving in this direction, hoping that everything comes together and that all these pieces come together at the right time in the right instant for everything to work. And if it doesn't, you know, then what is plan B, right? How do we create a plan B as we go along? How do we pivot and still make it change? And we saw that it took a lot of destruction, but in their case, it eventually all came to a head and all worked, and it even worked out for Boba Fett, which is is pretty good.
Boba
But
Fett.
yes,
Where?
Ah! But yeah, there's the long and the short of it is, folks, is that we're going to have plans. We're going to get budget. We're going to do stuff. Things are going to get in the way. Things are going to sidetrack you. Curtis was speaking completely out of experience over the last couple of years. The air conditioner thing. We've got 3 buildings and 3 different air conditioning units, and one of them works great. The other one, the new one, in the batch, has problems and has continued to have problems. And so when we're looking at getting a new soundboard, we're looking at getting new cameras and doing stuff like that, all of a sudden the operations budget, which is consistently like that, all of a sudden has to become this. And we have to start doing some shifting, and we've got to rob Peter to pay Paul for a little bit. And eventually, though, it all works out, if you're diligent and if you keep working the plan, pivoting the plan, getting everybody on the same plan and moving forward. So we just want to encourage you there that all hope is not lost when something does come up, and look for creative ways to work around it. And when it comes to, go ahead.
No, I think that one of the things to consider as you're walking through this process and you're just considering, how do we handle this, realize that a well-informed trained technician is the key to being able to put together a plan. So, like, you're watching this to learn, and I hope you're learning something. I hope you're enjoying yourself, because we're just kind of having fun with this today. But I hope you're learning something. I hope you learn something with everything we roll out. And there's amazing resources out there that you can pull from to help you learn. There's videos of people going deep dives into equipment and different things like that. But to really be able to do this, in Return of the Jedi, you had to have the mastermind Jedi who could kind of see how things were going to unfold. That's our job when we lead ministry, is to make sure we're fully informed as best we can be on what we're doing, and that we bring the right people in to get wisdom to develop that plan. And so we really, really want to make sure we're ready for that, because that's what it's going to come down to, and that we're training other technicians to be able to do that as well, because then they're going to maybe specialize in an area. I know everybody in our booth, we've got one guy or a couple guys who are just great on the board. They love the board. They understand the computer. They understand streaming, but they love audio, and that's where they really dive into. Our lighting people really enjoy that. Our camera people really like to be on the cameras, and so they rotate around to different positions. They may serve in multiple capacities, but that's what they're going to watch a YouTube video on. They're volunteers, they're lay people. You may be a lay person in your church, and so it's okay to specialize in an area. But if you're leading the ministry, you also need to be a general practitioner. You need to have an understanding of everything going on so that you can lay out a comprehensive plan. But listen to your specialists. Listen to your guy who for some reason just watches hours and hours of people talking about Star Wars and how it will relate to church media, and like listen to that guy and let him say, hey, I read about this, or I saw this, or I heard that. What do you think about this? And allow them to speak into that plan too. That does two things. One, it makes your plan better. But two, it gets more people invested in your ministry. And when you're setting up these things, more people who understand how and why it does what it does. And that's important, because no lone rangers in ministry. It doesn't work that way. If you're doing it by yourself, it's going to fail. You need a team around you. It's biblical. We've got to have a team around us. Jesus even had a team around him. So
Absolutely.
We want to make sure that we're doing that faithfully. And one other little tidbit when it comes to we've talked a lot about kind of budgeting and all this, because it's one of the main things, the walls we run into in church media. Realize there's also this little magic. It's like the Force out there. You know how like the Force seemed to like, oh, we need the Force to make a difference here, and all of a sudden the Force makes a difference, right? So the concept of special offerings are important, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because you never know when someone's just going to give a special offering. Don't lose hope. Stay connected. If you're running out of, or if money is limited, be willing to talk to your financial person at your church and say, hey, are there any special funds? Because a lot of churches have funds broken down, and different churches have different policies about the way they handle it. But like there'll be one, oh, we want to give to the youth ministry in honor of somebody, or we want to give to the children's ministry, or we want to give to the AV ministry or to the worship ministry. And then a lot of times those kind of just get set off on a back page and nobody really notices them. And they'll sit sometimes for years and years without being spent. So go in and ask, is there a designated fund that we might be able to purchase something like this from? It's a good question to ask, because a lot of times there's designated funds and somebody's like, oh yeah, like 4 years ago, so-and-so's grandparent passed away, and they were like, I just want to give something to honor them, and I want to give it to the church. And they gave something to the worship ministry or to the media ministry, because maybe that person was a shut-in who watched the streaming service or something like that. And so just realize there are more than one way to get funding, and sometimes you can be creative, but you kind of got to know the right questions to ask. So designated funds, you never know what's in there, and it's not that, sometimes people are kind of hoarding them, like, oh, we don't want you to know about them because we want them to be there when we need them, and that's okay in some cases, as long as it's what it's specifically for. But being able to walk in and say, is there any other money available? That's a good question to ask, and a lot of times you'll find out there may be something that you could utilize. So just another good plan to have, a good way to respond when things go sideways and we want to move forward.
Yeah, and expect things to go sideways, because the emperor is always going to try, Satan is always going to try to thwart every plan that you have and try to shut down the rebellion and all that sort of stuff. So just be prepared. Go into it with your eyes wide open that we have these great ideas. We have these things that we want to do. Let's start looking for the pitfalls as we start moving through them. Never just stop. Just keep moving forward, keep building, keep growing and stuff. Now, before we end, I thought of a fantastic little bonus conversation that we should have. Because this is a conversation that you and our pastor and our worship pastor have had about the Mandalorian, and about how more and more and more every single character from the Mandalorian seems to be showing up from the New Testament and stuff. I want you to share your thoughts on that, because I think it's brilliant. If you've not been watching the Mandalorian, shame on you. That is some really, really good Star Wars TV, and shame on you for not watching it, because it's awesome. It's fantastic. So Curtis, what were we talking about when we basically got the word out and started saying, look, this is the Mando?
Well, here's the deal. I already said it in this show. I believe that story is really important in our lives. Story is important to God. He has a whole story He wants us to be a part of. and it's our job to discover our part in that, in God's story, and
Right.
that's what we're supposed to do as believers. So I think story is powerful. I think the telling of stories tells a lot about ourselves, about our culture, about our
Hmm.
world. And so, but I also believe that whether the writers and directors are believers or have any knowledge of Scripture, I think every good story has the same components that God has already laid out through creation and throughout our world, because we are naturally drawn to God's story. We're naturally drawn to these things, and
To
so
these
I
archetypes,
actually
right?
believe you can take just about any movie and you can find a Christ figure. You can find these things. There's a
Hmm.
redemption. There's a guide. So all kinds of things that you can find that are common to
Yes.
stories that are consistent with Scripture, including a savior. I mean, in Star Wars, you even have like a miraculous birth taking place, right?
Right.
I mean, it's unavoidable,
Right.
even though the writers aren't believers, and
Right.
so it's just that story's in us all. And so when I watch stuff, I always see it through that lens. And so I'll try not to give any spoiler alerts. For Mando, in case you like to stream it when it's all over, which it is by now, by the way, so
Yeah.
you can
You've
stream
had
it all.
you've had 2 weeks.
Yeah, you've got time, but 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 it's interesting because the character of Bo-Katan, you've got the armorer, and you've got this character of Bo-Katan, and they reach this point where they determine that Bo-Katan is the key person to unite all Mandalorians
Hmm.
together. Because, and the way the armorer puts it is because Bo-Katan walks in both worlds. She's a part of this group that the armorer has now. She's been initiated into it, but she also is a part of the rest of the Mandalorians. And so, in essence, what Bo Katan is she's Paul, guys. I'm telling you, Bo
Hmm.
Katan is Paul.
Yeah.
Paul was a Roman and a Jew. He walked in both worlds
Right.
when he was Saul, and now he's Paul. And so now you've got Bo Katan. And so that would make the armorer Peter, the head of the church.
Hmm.
You got Bo Katan, who's a Gentile and a Jew, basically, and then you've got the Mandalorian, who would be, what, Silas,
Silas. Yeah.
Barnabas,
Hmm.
who's walking along the road, and then you've got Grogu, who's Timothy, right? That's one of the guys. He's the little guy. He's got to be Timothy, right?
Yeah.
You can find all kinds of examples, but that's the funny thing about story is I believe that story reveals our desire to be a
Hmm.
part of God's story. I think we write stories that constantly mirror Scripture because that's what's in us. And it's what God has placed in us to be a part of that story. And so we create, I mean, if you look at, I know that Tolkien and C.S. Lewis were good friends, and this supposedly was a conversation that went on years ago where
Hmm.
Tolkien said, I'm going to write stuff that isn't, Christian.
Right.
He would tell Lewis, your stuff's always so overtly Christian,
Hmm.
and Tolkien, Lewis told Tolkien, believers can't do that. Everything you write, you're going to find God's story in. So
Hmm.
Tolkien wrote the Lord of the Rings, which of course has the king figure coming back. It has, I mean, you've got the entire story.
Hmm.
You can find tons of parallels to Scripture, and when he was done, Lewis pointed that out to Tolkien, and really made him mad because Tolkien was like, "Darn it, I didn't think I was doing that." And so, so
What's in your heart comes
we
forward.
naturally do that.
That's right.
And that's why it's fun to talk about these kinds of things in the context of stories, because stories is how we relate.
Hmm.
And so, what you can know is that you can be Luke Skywalker too, that you can have the Force, that you can be the one who overcomes things, but realize in the long run, what we really want to do is we want to become the guide. We want to be Yoda. We want to be Obi-Wan. We want to be the one who's preparing others to be the hero and do the work just like Jesus did for us. Jesus was the guide. And so as we walk through these things and we talk about these things, what I would say is always find the truth that God has in all of the things around us, and how can this apply to my life. But always remember, in church media, that you're going to have this hope, you're going to have things fall apart, and then everything can come back together with a good plan as long as you apply it, because this is the way. Happy May the 4th. May the 4th be with you. Have a great day. We love you guys. Don't forget to subscribe, and we will see you next week.
Brilliant. Good job. Hey, Rock Davis, thanks for the super chat, brother. You and Justin both. Let's see. Silver and Blue, which is Cord. I'm just going to call him Cord because that's who he really is. Cord.
Because we know who you are.
That's right, Cord. We're coming for you. Cord tried to run people off the road the other day. It was awesome. Let's see. Volunteers are great and are needed, but they can't just be thrown into the fire. That's exactly right. That's actually something that, Curtis, that you and I see in the Church Media Hacks group, and something that we will be addressing soon is working with volunteers, bringing in volunteers, training up volunteers, some strategies for growing your volunteer base, for deploying your volunteers, and then helping them be successful in the areas that they are working in, and then overall developing that heart of service in everybody in your church, which thankfully that is something that I've watched our pastor and our worship pastor, and Curtis, you as well, develop over the last 5 or 6 years in the body that we serve with, and when it is focused properly, it is a huge blessing, and most things are able to get taken care of, which is really cool. Let's see. Christopher says, any Star Wars made by Disney is terrible. Classic. Okay, he's throwing bombs. Okay, hang on. We have a troll. He's our troll, but he's trolling.
He's our troll.
What the heck? Let's see. Cord says, this is the way. Rock says, man, this is so good. Seeing the biblical connection is awesome. Makes it even better. Yeah, I agree. I remember, Curtis, when we all sat down and watched Mando, the first episode or two together. We were like, "Yay, Mando's coming out!" And then we saw that this is the way, and my pastor is like, "Dude, that's like right out of Isaiah." And we looked it up, and it was I'm paraphrasing, so this is Dave's message, but it's as you walk, you will hear a voice saying, go left or go right, and this is the way, follow it. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's huge.
Yeah, when we were watching the Mando this season and they had the Bo-Katan walks in both worlds comment after it, I'm like, we're just sitting there. It's just me and my wife and my youngest son, who's a college student. And we're sitting there, and I said, Bo-Katan is Paul. And Mason goes, how do these conversations happen? He's like, these are the conversations we have after watching a movie or Star Wars, is like, how this ties into scripture and what biblical truth, or, we walked out of the movie Free Guy years ago.
Oh yeah.
And it was me and there was we had 3 seminary students with us, and we all stood in the parking lot and just talked about, the entire philosophical concept that's laid forth in Free Guy. A story's been told for generations about overcoming gods to become a god yourself. It's a new age thing. And my son's just standing there shaking his head like, who else is having these kind of conversations?
Yeah. Well, I remember we were like leaning over to each other going, I'll bet you Jared works this into an illustration Sunday morning. This is going to show up. I can almost guarantee it. Let's see. We've got. Let's see. This is good. Justin Nava says Screen Crushes did a video called "What's the Point of Season 3 of Mando?" Favreau wrote in parallels to Old Testament Israel and Babylon. Big time. I can see that quite clearly. Let's see. Mandalorian is an awesome example of faith consistent concepts that are still visually awesome. Yeah, that Cord hit the nail on the head. I was telling my daughter Jaina that when you look at the adherence to the way, which we were who was I talking with? I was talking with somebody yesterday. Man, I don't remember who it was. But I was talking with my parents' pastor. How I don't start off a conversation saying that I'm a Southern Baptist or something. I say that I'm a Christian. I'm a Christ follower. I'm a follower of the way. And I remembered that's the way was the way that Christians, it's what they called themselves. They were followers of the way, which was the way to salvation, the gospel. I remember talking with Jaina, saying, this group of people, these Mandalorians that follow the way and stuff, that's like the early church. They're the ones that are they are dogmatic in their pursuit of Christ, as it were, and they follow it. They live out their beliefs, and to us, taking off the helmet and stuff like that. It's like, well, I mean, how do you eat? How do you, God, y'all's hair must stink, and all this sort of stuff. But that's the kind of thing is not compromising. We saw the disciples, all but one, basically not take off their helmet. They refused to take off their helmet to the point of death, and that same fervor for the way, crossing generations. I love that.
Well,
Absolutely love that.
I think that really you could take I mean, and we're just babbling now. I understand we're just talking heads, but really you can take the whole concept of the way, and if you look at the way it's perceived by the rest of the Mandalorians, they're saying that was never the way. So if you actually compare them to Israel, the Old Testament Israel, and the legalism that had become, all the rules that had become that were added to, and they made it so much harder, so much more complicated, so legalistic, so unforgiving, that when Jesus came, then he was kind of this flipped page that's like, you've lost sight. You're supposed to know, but you don't understand. You don't even understand the law, and you've had the law forever. You don't understand the whole purpose of the law, and the law is supposed to be not what you do because it's a law, but what you do because you're a follower of Christ. So these are the actions you would have. And so, like, that entire concept, when you listen to the conversations between the way Mandalorians, they're like, yeah, but you guys made that up. That's not the way it was. It wasn't, there was never a time in our history where it was like you couldn't take your helmet off. You guys created that problem and then kind of separated yourself. And so I think it very much is. So in essence, they're all becoming, what are they becoming? Messianic Mandalorians, I guess. I don't know. And so, but
yeah, there you go.
And so you've got the Gentiles, and then you've got, the Messianic Mandalorians. So anyway, Bo-Katan not being a Christ figure right now, the Christ figure is still really not there in the story, I would say. It's something ethereal, while, Bo-Katan would be the representative of the Gentiles, which in essence, Paul was sent for the Gentile. He was sent to minister to the Roman and that kind of thing. So there's a lot of parallels you can take. It's very interesting.
I love it. Let's see. So Cord says, at first the way felt cultish, but over the time you understood it was more of a family, and that's a lot like Christianity. That's right. Yeah, that's right. I thought the same thing too. That it seemed like a dogmatic cult that I couldn't relate with. But then when we finally got to see, remember when the big hawk dragon thing or whatever took one of the kids, and all of a sudden you see the church being the church. You see brothers and sisters coming together and saying, we will stop at nothing. We will go recover this one. We will not let this child, this person who has fallen, we're not going to let them slip through the cracks. And that is a message to us as believers, that when one of us starts to go astray, we need to go chase down and rescue this person and bring them back to the safety of the faith and the relationship.
Yeah. The other thing to learn from that situation is, don't build your camp on the shore where giant monsters come and eat your children off the beach and fly down and take your kids away. Like, when you saw when it happened and it flew away, they were all like, not again. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, guys, come on.
You would think they would be a little smart.
I understand that you need to randomly shoot your guns into the water, which I never understood that either. But, I understand that's part of your training is randomly shooting guns into water.
Yes.
But maybe move to a place, an area that's a little less volatile. Probably a good idea.
Yeah. Well,
that's part of the plan.
The Tusken Raiders and stuff, they learned not to camp in the entrance to the Krayt Dragons lair. I mean, surely.
How many kids have to get carried off by the dragon creature to figure that out?
I like that. Not again. Here we go again. We followed it, but we run out of fuel. That's awesome.
And I think that's where we close.
That's where we end it, folks. Everybody, thank you all for joining us today. This has been fun. This has been lighthearted, and I hope that you guys have also gained some truths and stuff. So we will be seeing you guys next week. I am apologizing for not having put out more shorts and content and stuff over the last couple of weeks. I've been swamped with trying to get our television network, Zondra TV, onto like Pluto and Freevee and all these other live streaming services. So I've been working on that and some other things, but just know that I've got a lot of stuff. Curtis and I have a content calendar that that is in our head that we're going to put down on paper, and all this will be so much more organized soon enough. We love you guys, and thank you all for joining us.
See you.